I'm standing here at the Health Factory in Heemstede, the Netherlands, and I have an appointment with Steven de Koningswachter, and he's going to tell me everything about Nano silver. I'm standing here beside Steven de Koningswachter.
Hi.
Steven, welcome.
Thank you.
Could you shortly introduce yourself to the viewers?
Sure. I'm the director and founder of the Health Factory and the director and founder of Stichting X Codex, or the X Codex Foundation. What else should I say?
First, explain what is the X Codex, because I think a lot of people don't know what is the X Codex.
Yeah, X Codex is a foundation that I established to protect people's rights to have access to natural health products and remedies should they choose to go that way instead of using pharmaceutical drugs. A lot of people are choosing to go that way. It's a very growing industry. And there is an awful lot of EU-level governmental pharmaceutical suppression of the natural health industry, and it is completely wrong. You know, what's called the natural health industry is actually the traditional medicine industry. It's much older than the pharmaceutical industry, and it is what the pharmaceutical industry actually grew out of. And, you know, it is healthier in many cases, with no side effects, no toxic side effects, and it needs protecting. Yeah. Hence X Codex.
Absolutely. So you formed the Health Factory.
Yeah.
How many years ago did you start it?
First registered in the Dutch Chamber of Commerce about 15 years ago.
15 years ago.
Yeah.
And how did you get started? Because what was your passion? What was your story? How did you get familiar with Nano silver, for example?
Going back about 20 odd years, I was making these photographs without a camera in the darkroom, and I had an eye infection. And I was getting injected with steroids directly into my eyes every day. Mm-hmm. And I knew nothing about health, natural health, allopathic health, homeopathic, naturopathic. I knew nothing about any of it. Mm-hmm. But my then girlfriend said to me, why don't you try colloidal silver? Now we're going back probably 20 or maybe more even years. And there was none on the market. Actually, yeah, I think it was more than 20, it was probably about 25 years. There was no colloidal silver to be found. We eventually did find a brown plastic bottle of a very yellowy liquid that just didn't look right to me, and I didn't like the idea of it. But I liked the idea of being stabbed in the eye with a cold needle slightly less. Yeah. So I thought, all right, fine, I'll give it a shot. And I started drinking this stuff, and I dripped it into my eyes. And 7 days later, a problem that I'd had for years, probably about 7 years at that time, disappeared.
So in 7 days, you found a cure for your eye problem?
Yes, I did. Yeah. And that blew my mind. Yeah. You know, I couldn't understand this. I mean, you know, to me, it was like, well, hang on. My ophthalmologist wears a lab coat, you know? How come he didn't know about this stuff? How come he didn't tell me? And when I confronted him and I said, hey, you know, I don't need your injection. Yeah. Why didn't you tell me about this stuff? Because this just handled it in 7 days when you've been injecting me for 7 years. Yeah. And he was like, well, because I don't know anything about it. He didn't have a clue. So that got me interested. Yeah. That got me very interested. So I started researching. The first thing I found out was that the American government has been suppressing colloidal silver since the 70s. And that fascinated me. I thought, ooh, the government doesn't like this stuff. That makes it even more interesting.
That must be interesting.
Yes.
How was really that in Europe at that time?
I'm not sure because, well, I was in England at the time. And like I said, it just wasn't on the market. And when I came to Holland, you know, there was one, in all the health food stores, they all had one tiny little bottle, a brown plastic bottle with some really low quality stuff in it. And it was somewhere in a corner. It was like a real B product. It wasn't like for the health food store, it's an A product. They didn't know what it was. They thought it was something to do with, you know, killing bad bugs, but they didn't really know. And they never really sold it. It just sat there in case somebody came in and said they wanted a bottle of this stuff. And then at that point, I had been making it for a while, and I had spent years researching this stuff. I wanted to know everything about it. It changed my life. Yeah. You know, I was a photographer. My eyesight, I was literally losing my eyesight. And I was convinced that I was going to save the world with this stuff. This stuff had to come out. So, and when I came to Holland, it was a case of, oh, wow, now what do I do? Do I rebuild my photographic career over here? Nobody knows me. And I thought, you know what? This is a message from the gods. I'm going to start my life new. I'm going to take on this new challenge. And I started making this ionic colloidal silver product. And that's where it all started.
Wonderful. Yeah. I have to be honest, I'm really a big fan of colloid silver for many years. When I got introduced to nano silver, it's even more effective. Could you tell the difference between colloidal silver and nano silver? Yeah. Because that is, I think, important to tell.
Yeah, that's very simple. A colloid is particles that are between 1 to 1,000 nanometers. Mm-hmm. Now that's a very large range quality-wise. A nanometer is about the size of an atom. One atom is roughly, you know, about the size of 1 nanometer. So, and 1,000 nanometers, well, that's a much, much bigger thing. So that's what they call a colloid by definition, held in held in suspension in another substance like water or milk is a colloid. You could think of chocolate milk as a colloid because it's a powder going into a liquid and you stir it all up and they're there in suspension. Yeah. Nano silver is a very different quality because it is borderline colloid, but most of the particles are actually less than a nanometer. Well, you know, between 0.114 up to maybe 5 nanometers. So you have some that are below, and those are considered dissolved. Mm-hmm. They are no longer in suspension; they are in solution. They're there, but science considers it to be dissolved just because it's below 1 nanometer. It doesn't really, it's just an arbitrary.
But what is then the effect in the body? Because it's more dissolved, it will go deeper in the body?
The smaller the particle size, the more effective. The larger the particle size, the less effective. Let's take, for example, let's talk about magnesium, and let's talk about the blood-brain barrier. The blood-brain barrier is 10 nanometers. Anything larger than 10 nanometers is kept out of the brain. Anything smaller than 10 nanometers can pass into the brain. Now, the nervous system is, the main part of that is the brain, and it desperately needs metals. It desperately needs magnesium. Now, the magnesium that you take in capsule form, even the oils, so little of that can actually get through the blood-brain barrier because of particle size, because of impurities. So, you know, and our particles are all sub 10 nanometers. And when you put it in the mouth, and, you know, the soft tissue in the mouth is so porous, the particles are immediately through and into the blood, and they can get into the brain where they are desperately needed. Yeah.
So I most of the time use it as a natural antibiotic. That's how I got familiar with it. Yeah. Last year, my father almost got his leg amputated, and for my case, the silver saved him, the nano silver. So
that's great.
I'm a big fan of the nano silver. That's why I saw the radar show last week, and I was a little bit confused because there was some toxicologist, and I don't want to put him down, but I didn't. They didn't show the opposite information, so that's why I'm here.
Yeah, no, they didn't. That was very one-sided, and actually very misinformative, because the viewpoint that they were pushing was that there's no science. I think Professor Dr. Dan Tao, that was a toxicologist's name, I think he stated that there was no science to show that silver is not dangerous, not toxic, and beneficial. And actually, that is a complete fallacy, I have to say, because the World Health Organization has stated safe levels of silver for consumption on a daily basis, long-term, over 70 years or more, in other words, a lifetime. The Environmental Protection Agency has quoted an even higher safe dosage of silver to be consumed daily over the period of a lifetime. So, you know, and those organizations are working based on science. There's so much science on silver, and not just silver, but colloidal silver, and nano silver. And there's so much, because basically colloidal silver has been around 120 years. It's older than the pharmaceutical industry. So there's more science on colloidal silver just by dint of its age. It's been around so long that there's been more time to do more science on it. But more than that, we have 3,000 plus years of experience with silver as an antibiotic, as a biocide. So, you know, yes, there is a tremendous amount known about this. And the European Food and Safety, if you want to talk about the law, the situation with the law, because they made big points on the Radar show about legalities. Let's take a look at the European Food and Safety and their rules. It states that you are only, we as the health factory are only allowed to sell silver for topical use. Okay, because they're not sure, and they never said it isn't safe. They've never said it's toxic. They said they're not sure. So we're only allowed to sell it for topical use.
And topical use, you mean on the skin?
On the skin. Yes. Or in the nose, or on the, you know, for the gum and teeth. They consider that topical. You're not allowed, we're not allowed to sell it for consumption. In the United States, they say, the FDA, the American equivalent of the European Food and Safety Association, says that it's only allowed to be sold for consumption.
Wait,
and it's not allowed to...
You're confusing me. So in America, they're telling you can use it for inside use?
You're only allowed to.
Only allowed?
Only. You're not allowed to sell it for topical, because they're not sure if it's safe for that.
Yes. And for in the Netherlands or in Europe?
In Europe, you're only allowed to sell it for topical and not for internal consumption, because they're not sure if it's safe. Basically, they're both saying this is based on science, and they make a mockery out of themselves. I mean, the legal situation is just, it's a mockery. They're showing their own idiocy. And
what did it affect you when you saw the show of Radar? What happened with you when you saw it?
Well, for the week leading up to it, you know, it was fairly dark, you know, because Radar has a reputation for attacking the natural health industry, and I will talk about that later if you like. But then the show came out, and I mean, Remco, a guy who works for me, immediately just put all these laughing faces on the WhatsApp, and it was just like, yeah, it was a laugh. I mean, it was a giggle, because they brought out no science. What they were saying wasn't backed up by anything. The one statement that he made, the toxicologist, about silver damaging sperm cells. Yeah. That test is so hysterical that they did. This wasn't a test. This wasn't science. This was an attempt to be able to have a scientific backing to say specifically that colloidal silver damages sperm cells. What they did was they took 1 milliliter of semen, of sperm, and then they put on top of it 2 milligrams of silver. So they put twice the weight of silver on top of the sperm. It's a joke.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it? And they call that scientific research. It's a joke.
The lady that was on the program, she drank 3 bottles in 2 or 3 years,
Yeah.
and she was really scared that it will affect or damage her body. What could you tell to people who are scared after viewing the program at Radar?
Okay, well, if anybody was going to be damaged by nano silver or colloidal silver, you're looking at him.
Yeah.
Because in 15 years, I have consumed so much of this stuff, testing it, using it. I wouldn't even want to put a figure on how many hundreds of liters I've actually consumed. And as you can see, alive and kicking at my 54 years of age. So, yeah.
And not only colloidal silver, nano silver, but you're also using gold, magnesium,
absolutely.
zinc.
Yes, copper, iron, yeah.
Why is it so important? Because you told a little bit about the brain, that it needs the minerals,
Yeah.
and but why is it so important to use it for our body? What can you tell about that?
Which one are we talking about now?
Let's first discuss the silver, because that is now the topic.
Okay, good. Well, now I have to say, for legal reasons, that I am speaking as a person of flesh and blood, and I am not representing any company right now in order to answer that question. Because if it was published and I didn't say that, I would be opening myself up to a €30,000 fine just for words that come out of my mouth in Europe. And I think that is scandalous. It's a violation of human rights.
Yeah.
It's a violation of the, I think it's Article 6 and Article 19 on the convention, United Nations International Convention on Human Rights that has been signed by the Dutch government and all other governments in Europe. And yet I find myself prohibited from speaking certain things, otherwise I'm open to a fine from a government. That's wrong.
So for me, it's same. I have to say I'm from flesh and blood,
Yeah.
and I telling just my own story.
Yeah.
In that words, I can tell
and
it.
then you can say anything you want. Then you can say anything you want. So how do I personally use silver? Well, I drink it, I consume it, I give it to my children. My children have never had an antibiotic in their lives. My children have never had a pharmaceutical drug in their lives. And
Mine too not.
yeah. Yeah, and you've never seen 2 healthier children than my children. We went through the swine flu that came here to Holland. We just used silver, and actually my youngest child, my daughter, she got the swine flu. We handled it with silver. So how do you use it? Well, I use it to detox. You can use it, once a year or twice a year. I will do a large amount of silver and really decimate the candida and the pathogens in my body. And you feel much better when you do that. You make yourself less likely to get sick throughout the year. And that's the primary way of using it. You can use silver every day if you want to, but I don't recommend it. I don't think that's the way to do it, because silver is not an essential mineral to be for life. The body will only use it in tiny amounts, really tiny amounts, and our product is set up so that it gives you that quantity. You can drink, I can drink quite a lot of it because you're getting a very, very fine amount. It's not about, you see, there is this American attitude, American idea that more is better. And when you're talking about these minerals, especially the noble metals, that's not necessarily true. It's got, quantity has nothing to do with quality. ppm, parts per million, that's a measure of quantity, not quality. It's about the particle size. I mean, I have a little experiment I do. If you want to pause, I'll set it up, and then I can go and do this little test to show you what I mean, what the difference is.
Yeah, we can do that.
Right.
Hi.
Hi.
Can I take a look inside?
I'm sorry, this is restricted area.
Oh, sad, sorry.
Yeah.
So, Stephen, you wanted to show us a test.
Yeah.
What kind of test?
Well, you asked me a question about quality, so I wanted to make the distinction between quality and quantity. Yeah. All right. Now, if you consider that this is a piece of silver, let's say this is a 50 ppm lump of silver. Yeah. All right. You wouldn't drink that, would you?
No, it can't fit my body.
No, I wouldn't drink it either. But if you, because it wouldn't do your health any good.
Yeah.
But if you took a 1 ppm amount of silver and divided that amount of silver into 1 million particles, you would drink that because that would do you a lot of good. Or at least I would. So that's the difference between quality and quantity. That's a much greater amount of silver than your 1 ppm. But the 1 ppm is going to do you much more good, much more beneficial for your health. Same with magnesium, same with zinc, same with any of the important metals that we need. Same with gold. You know, your viewers should know that every single neurotransmitter in their brain has at least 1 to 2 atoms of gold in it that never get replaced because we don't supplement with gold. And it's so important to get absolutely the finest quality, the smallest particle size, because when you're talking about neurotransmitters, again, anything larger than 10 nanometers can't get into the brain.
So actually what you're telling, just eating healthy food, it's not enough. No,
it's not enough. No, because healthy food, you know, define healthy food. You know, you can say it's organic, but then if it has no mineralization in it, how healthy is it really? It might be clean, but that doesn't make it healthy. Yeah.
So you're using purified water.
Super
to make it,
water.
And then it's an ionizing process.
Yes.
With silver.
Yes, we are actually making, you know, we manufacture, as you've seen, we manufacture our own products here in the health factory in Heemstede. And we do that. I keep the manufacturing under my thumb. I will never allow anyone else to manufacture our product. I won't buy it in from someone else because we develop the quality of the products. We are constantly developing the quality of what we produce, and we've gone from a very crude quality, you know, going back 15, 20 years when I first started making it, a very crude quality of ionized silver. You could buy the ionizers, you could buy these machines online. You know, I started that way. And now we are in a very different place. The quality that we make now is, I don't think there's another company on earth that actually has the quality. Even really good companies, and there are some good manufacturers of silver. Sovereign Immunogenics is actually a very good product. It's a very good quality of product, and I don't understand why the owner of that company has never protected that product from his silver products from oxidization by light. Silver is oxidized by light.
And that you were doing with the bottle. You're doing the protection.
Yes, but when we make silver, we make it under specific light-tight conditions to protect, because it's even more sensitive during the manufacturing process to oxidization by light. So, you know, there are steps that we take to protect it from that because, you know, oxidized silver is no good for your body and it's no good for photography.
Yes. Yeah. I love the violet bottles.
Yeah. The dark violet glass, I'm very, very pleased to be able to say that we are probably their biggest reseller in the world now. If not, then we're certainly one of the top 2 or 3 biggest resellers of this glass in the world. There is no other glass like it. It is not. It does not. It protects from oxidization, but it also has energetic properties that has been shown. according to the work of Dr. Leonard Horowitz and Dr. Masaru Emoto, water has memory. And this glass, we did similar tests to the Masaru Emoto tests to show that the information that we put into the water is isolated from any information coming from the outside into the bottle. Why is that important? Well, imagine you go into a store, a health food store, and you see a man walk in who's sick, or you see a man walk in who's angry and emotionally distraught. All of that information is being, and Masaru Emoto's scientific tests proved this, all of that information is being broadcast and held in the water. And every product on the shelves in that store, even the dried products, have at least 5% water in them. So that information is going in there. This product and products that are in this packaging material do not have that contamination. Yeah.
Wonderful. I did some tests with my kids with cooked rice, and to one of the rice they had to tell sweet words, and to the other rice the nasty words. Yeah. And you saw the difference in fungus and growth. And
it's incredible.
It's incredible.
It's incredible.
It turned in a few days. No, I have to tell 2 weeks. Yeah. It was really dark, and the other one was still white.
Yeah, it's incredible. I know. Anything with water in it is affected by the energy around it, emotional energy. It's very important.
Thank you for this explanation. I have 2 more questions. One, what do you think about the antibiotic industry? Because I see so many people in my praxis, they have five times antibiotic, and it doesn't help. It's a big industry. What is your mind on that?
Well, look, it's like this. Antibiotics, any antibiotic will kill 4 or 5 bacteria, but it won't kill them all. And if you compare that to silver, it kills every pathogen it was tested on. That means not just all bacteria, but virus and fungus as well. We also have read scientific data that shows that at this quality, silver, the nano silver, actually repairs damaged human cells, and furthermore, it promotes the growth of lactobacillus, which is the family of good bacteria that we all need in our gut. So the difference between silver and antibiotics is huge. But now let's make one thing very important fact clear about antibiotics that most people miss. There is nothing under the sun, moon, and stars in the history of our civilization that has ever made anywhere near as much money as antibiotics. I'm not talking about all the other pharmaceutical drugs, just antibiotics. If you take the film industry, if you take the weapons industry, multi-billion-dollar industries a year. Now take the oil industry. Okay, let's think of another big industry that we can think of. The porn industry.
That's the big one.
For laughs and giggles. Okay, so take all of those industries. They're all multi-billion dollars every year. Bring them together. They don't come close to what antibiotics makes every year. That's $1 trillion industry.
So there's an interest.
That is a huge interest. And the radar show, I'm going to bring out a program on radar. But first of all, actually, before I say that, I really should thank radar. Yes. I owe them a thank you because this week our sales have really gone up. And secondly, they really acknowledged us as being, as having reached a national level. They actually gave us a validation. They've said, you know what, you guys are so big now and so scary that we need to try and take you down a peg. And funnily enough, it really didn't work. You know, when you are a group of people, as the Health Factory is, who have a purpose, and our purpose is to help humanity, our purpose is to show them the history of these noble metals, why they are so important, because Gold, silver, platinum, these noble metals are the reason why humanity exists, and people don't know this. They have no idea. Some of the very biggest questions that we ask and we walk around and we don't have answers to, you get the answers to these questions when you really dig into the history of the noble metals. And that's what the Health Factory is about. We're about showing people the importance of this range of minerals and metals that we are not consuming, that we really desperately need to be consuming.
Thank you for sharing all this information with us.
Pleasure, pleasure.
Should we close up to show the viewers that we can drink the Nano Silver, the Nano Gold?
Why not? Let's do that. Let's do that. Let's have a shot.
Let's have a toast.
Let's have a toast.
And that.
One for the cameraman.
Yes.
Now, Proost.
Steven, Proost.
Yeah.
To our healthy.
Yeah, to good health.
To good health. The best way to take it is to keep it 1 minute in your mouth because of the saliva.
10-20 seconds in your mouth, because the particles get into the bloodstream, especially with gold, with magnesium, zinc. These are all urgently needed by the brain. You hold it in your mouth, you know, the particles are so fine, they're instantly into the bloodstream through the soft tissue and then through the blood-brain barrier, which is 10 nanometers, and these particles can get through it.
It will energize us today.
Absolutely.
So the silver is antibiotic and immune system boosting.
Immune system boosting. It's antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal. If I was speaking as the CEO of the Health Factory, I would say, yes, it will keep your skin clean by getting rid of bad bacteria off of your skin, but I'm not. I'm speaking as a human being of flesh and blood, and I drink it myself because it will decimate the candida in my guts and get rid of the pathogens around my body.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And to be short, the gold is mostly...
Well, gold is the oldest of all the food supplements. It is actually the oldest known medicine in the world, believe it or not. And that is the purpose of gold. That's why gold became valuable in the first place. Paracelsus, one of the fathers of modern medicine, said that gold makes the heart happy. And what he meant was that it catalyzes the body's production of its own dopamine. And catalyzing is probably the wrong word. What it does, you see, I said dopamine is a neurotransmitter. It's basically a brain messenger, and dopamine is one of these emotional messengers. And when you get a lot of dopamine, then you feel good. But dopamine, I believe, this is my opinion, has more than two gold atoms in it. I think because it's emotional information that it has to communicate, so it needs more gold. But I think it has more gold atoms than the normal neurotransmitters, and that's why gold is so important to supplement, because your brain just can't get enough of it. Yeah.
So if I listen to you, I have to come back to listen about gold, because you can speak a lot more about this wonderful product.
Yeah, definitely. I have a lecture that I give on the history of gold and humanity, and it involves ancient aliens and all kinds of cool stuff like that.
You go very deep.
Very deep. Very deep. Yeah.
The blue pill or the red pill?
Exactly. Which one are you going to take?